We're going to get to our next hour of content here on the Impact Stream with our own Walker Lawson, who's going to talk a little bit about the economic outlook for the Business Alliance. And that is a big thing, obviously, because over the last couple of months, there's been a lot of uncertainty. I think not I guess, specifically in the Charlotte area, but I think nationally as a whole, and some of the statistics that people have seen haven't really eased those fears, right? And then you have the Labor Department canceling some of their Q3 and Q4 statistics. So it sounds like there's better news, though, in terms of Charlotte's economy. So we'll start with a broad question with the Business Alliance. Obviously, they are the big metric within the metro as of, they have a lot of touches on small businesses, large businesses. This is a huge banking city. So, what did they say? You talked to the CEO from U.S. Bank, Brian Moynihan.
Yeah, so really interesting. Obviously, they did talk about kind of the large scale nationally, but we focus more so on Charlotte, of course, and what the economy looks like for us. So their message is that Charlotte economy is on the right track, and that we're really we've built a strong foundation over the last couple of years to move forward in the way that we will in 2026. They really attribute the transit expansion as to something that's going to help businesses in this area. So we talk to people that were in the medical field that say, nationally, Americans miss about 4 million Americans miss their doctor's appointments, and having access to transit like this and additional resources will allow people to make it to those doctor's appointments, and specifically like the Pearl District where we've talked about, where they are working on, the medical field and trying to make sure that more people can come to the area. But Bank of America, in a sense, had also talked a lot about how you want to attract younger people and youth, and by doing so, you want to have a city that is easy to get around. That's what people want. I mean, you look at New York City as an example, where it's easier to get around. A lot of these bigger cities in the Northeast, that people can easily get on transit and get to their jobs from point A to point B. So really talking about how this 1 cent sales tax is kind of laid the groundwork for us. And then they talked a little bit about the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance talked about how there was record-breaking growth with over 7,000 jobs and $1.4 billion of potential investment on the table. So really seeing Charlotte's economy grow, which is a good thing, of course, for us to see. And, of course, transit, they said was not everyone was sold on it, but it was still something that they feel is beneficial to the area.
Walker, you did a lot of stories on development over the last, it pains me to say it's been about a year since I think you've been here.
Almost,
maybe. Yeah. So there we go. My memory isn't as bad as I thought.
Mine's as bad as it.
So yeah. Anyway, so you've seen firsthand that there's a lot of development going in. I don't know. Did you do the story, on ERCAD, that world-class experimental education surgical?
I had not. No.
Okay. Yeah. So there's this, and I'm sure you know of this. This is Innovation Center going in, and actually I need to reach out to their marketing team. So if they're listening, you will get a bunch of calls and emails from me, because this innovation, this place is going to bring a ton of economic impact with it, because surgeons from across the world are going to be coming to Charlotte. And in this study, it said anywhere from 9,000 to 10,000 surgeons a year. Doctors are paid some of the best in the economy in the world because of what the work that they do, and they deserve that, obviously. Did they talk about any specific projects like that have really given them this optimism for this next year or even beyond?
Yeah, I mean, and they talked about the Pearl District being, this big area where medicine is kind of another area where they're looking at. Hopefully that this transit addition will help. There are numbers that have shown that there is expected to be a shortage of nurses and people going into the medical field. And they said really just trying to tap into the younger kids and letting them see an area like the Pearl District, and letting them, like local schools, bring their kids out, letting them come out and see these careers will eventually, they hope, down the pipeline, encourage more people to go into that industry as well. So, that is, the Pearl District was a big economic investment into the city of Charlotte to try to get more people into this area. So it will be interesting to see. They said Charlotte is on fire right now, that the last couple of years of investment have been a big deal. And another company that we spoke to also said they probably wouldn't have invested in Charlotte 30 years ago if the airport would have not put in all of this investment into becoming the hub that it is, and to allowing more flights to other places. So they kind of use that also as an example of why when you see transit expansion, it might draw in more businesses to the area, because they say the airport being such a hub that it was able to become was a big investment for them, because if Charlotte Douglas wouldn't have been able to have them travel, internationally or to these other places, they might not have decided to run the company out of Charlotte.
I mean, a major finance group, SoFi, just announced that they were going to move part of their company and make a presence here in Charlotte over the last 6 months. You've got Citigroup, you've got Pacific Life, Scout Motors that made a $207 million investment. So there are a lot of huge companies. Obviously, this is the second biggest banking hub in America here, Charlotte, North Carolina. So there's a lot of opportunity. And as you said, I think people made their voice heard with the 1 cent sales tax, infrastructure. I think that, I was having a discussion with somebody that's actually from Charlotte at our church over this past weekend, and he was saying he's worried that Charlotte in and of itself is a little bit behind in terms of infrastructure. And I think people feel that frustration, right? On just a regular Saturday or Sunday, you might be running up against traffic on 77 or 85. But I also think that alludes to a lot of the economic growth that you are kind of talking about that has come to this area. And then, on top of that, you have people that are just moving here, families and whatnot. So it does promote a big opportunity, but there's a huge stewardship piece of this that I think, people that are in power need to think about. So some interesting things. As far as the CEO from U.S. Bank, what interesting things did he have to say to you today?
Yeah, so they pretty much said, for them, the big deal is going to be, they really did go into transit as like the prime thing that they see being this like spur for the area, of course. And he also tapped into the youth that you want to see. They want to bring it, they only have about an 8% turnover rate. So they were saying that you're going to see they're going to need to hire about 12 to 13,000 new hires next year alone. So it will be interesting to see, they want 300 to 400 that are around college kids. So just really trying to bring more youth into this area, of course, and I think making a place where people feel is safe, a place that people feel like they can get around, a place that they feel like is fun. The city's working on really trying to tap into local sports. We're seeing that and trying to get people out and about and trying to give them more options outside of South End, but giving, the Iron District is something that's in the works that we've talked about. All of these different development projects and trying to get people more excited about the city to get them to stay.
I got to ask, did anybody talk about the immigration operation or the enforcement that happened? Because, let's be honest, that hurts people's bottom lines. We saw businesses closed specifically to the Latin community, right? But that affects our entire community. I mean, when you have a huge swath of South Boulevard or Central Avenue or a certain part of Charlotte shut down, just like we saw in Chicago, that is a big issue for all of us who live in Charlotte. Did they talk anything about that, I guess?
Yeah, so they talked about some policies that you see from the administration where things like tariffs and different things. They kind of didn't fully go into all explanations about what they kind of see, and they say those are still discussions. Of course, immigration, you want good people here that want to work and, of course, invest in businesses. So it was a brief discussion while we were there. Okay,
I get it. Awesome. I appreciate you, being a part of all this development news, because it's good to talk to somebody who's an expert in this. And I think that's why, we have you cover that kind of lane. I know sometimes it can be tough to beat the streets on the
a little bit easier when you're from here and you've seen it.
Exactly. So appreciate your expertise in that way. And you can check out Walker's story tonight at 4, and then we've got something at 5 and 6, I believe, for you as well. So Walker, appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.